Hey everybody, it's Matthew, and I wanted to take a minute of your time to run down some of the regulatory changes that are coming about in July of 2019 or January of 2020 that we know so far. Now, there are a lot. The association public policy committees have worked on a bunch of things, and some of them are just clarification, some of them don't really apply to the masses, some of them are just, well, I don't think they're as important as some of the others. So I've pulled out of them what I think is important to you and I in our day-to-day business, and well, here we go. So one of the biggest ones that I think that we're going to see a change is the Property Owner Association Act, and it's going to be under the delivery section. And so this came as a clarification of a court case that occurred last year. And essentially what it does is address the issue of partial delivery. So I'm the listing agent or seller, and I deliver to you and your buyer a packet. And for whatever reason, either I've told you so, or you know so, or there's some type of note attached to it from the POA that says this is only a partial package, that there's more to come. Or I notify you and say, hey, look, we have tried to get a whole POA, one doesn't exist. Here's simply a notice that says we've done everything we can and we couldn't get to the documents in time. We're putting you on notice, we've tried and we're not trying anymore. And historically what has happened has been a conflict in whether or not I can terminate or whether I continue to leave open this contingency to terminate the contract because you, the seller, haven't delivered to me a full and complete document. And what the new regulation says is that those 3 days are now going to start at the time in which even a partial delivery or notice of delivery or non-delivery is executed. So if I send you over a letter and say, we've tried, here's what we've tried, we can't get a hold of documents, we're just letting you know they don't exist or they're not available to us. Or here's a packet, I don't have the financial part of it yet, or I don't have the report from the POA about all the inconsistencies and violations that the POA has on your home, and I just give you that document, it's not complete. You don't get to hold out anymore for delivery. You, the buyer, and the buyer's agent need to terminate within those 3 days after delivery if you don't want to continue on. If you don't terminate in those 3 days, and I deliver part of the document later to you, and you knew or should have reasonably known that you only had a partial document, you don't benefit from the 3 days anymore. Now, there is not very clear language in this, but we can look at it from a common sense standpoint and say, if I thought I got the full packet, and then the buyer comes back and says, oh my goodness, we forgot to give you the list of violations, there may be the ability to terminate because you weren't put on notice that it's a partial document or wasn't reasonable for you to know it was a partial document. Those are two very different standards, so don't get confused in that. Don't say, well, they didn't put me on notice. You don't have to put you on notice. If it's reasonable and clear that you only had part of the documents, well, then you probably don't benefit any longer after the first 3 days. So if you get a partial statement, your buyer doesn't want to wait, doesn't trust, doesn't want to lose their protection under this, they should terminate within those 3 days and not worry about getting the other documents or write an agreement, an addendum that says we're going to continue this beyond 3 days. As it stands now, the law says you have 3 days. The buyer and seller could agree to give extra days if they wish. The law does not provide or allow them to do fewer than 3 days or to waive that altogether. So, but they can always extend. The next one is fictitious name, and this really kind of came about last year to really impact our teams. So remember, Virginia laws changed and said teams have to now have a business entity license, they have to be incorporated or LLC of some type of standard, and they're going to have to also have, if they want a fictitious name, they have to record it. So you go to the SEC, you get your company name, the name that you want wasn't available, so then you have to go to the circuit court and record your fictitious name. And what the law said as of last year was, well, you're going to have to record that fictitious name in any jurisdiction in which you want to do business. And so for us as agents, that's absurd, right? I'm licensed in the entire state. I don't want to record my fictitious name in the Spotsylvania courthouse and then have to go record it again in the city of Richmond and in Fredericksburg and in Spotsylvania and in Northern Virginia. That doesn't make any sense. And so there's been a fix to this that says as of July, all you need to do is now record it with the SEC. We used to not record it with the SEC. We used to record it with the courthouse. What Virginia Realtors has advised is if you have previously already recorded this with a circuit court, with a county or jurisdiction, and now cover you for the whole state, you have to take no further action. But in the future, you'll just record it with the SEC, which is kind of the way it should have always been, and now you don't have to worry about it. The next one isn't a real estate code section rule, but it absolutely will 100% apply to me. And I am guessing it's 100% going to apply to the vast majority of you as realtors. And I want to be clear when I say this, that this is not a completely done deal. It's really close. So in this legislative cycle, there was a bill proposed that says it would be a violation of law to use any personal communications device. In other words, a smartphone or an iPad or tablet in your hand while also driving in a work zone. And so the House and the Senate sent that forward to the governor and said, here's our bill. It's going to be against the law to use a mobile communication or personal communications device, smartphone, in a work zone. The governor said, why don't we go a step further? He kicked it back and said, I'm going to add, period, that you cannot have in your hand a personal communications device of any sort while driving anywhere. He sends it back. The House says yes. The Senate says, no, I don't think so. And now we will have until I think it's May 3rd to decide if that's going to be accepted or not. My guess is, and I talked to 2 other people today who said the same thing, my guess is that this is probably going to pass as of January 1st. This is not a July 1st, but as of January 1st, it'll be unlikely that you can hold in your hand while driving any personal communication device. So that means taking a phone call and putting it in your ear would probably will be a violation of that as well. So that means wireless. So your phone connection or some type of speaker connection. I'm not going to tell you how to get around the rule. Just understand that that will most likely to be the rule. It's certain from what I hear to be the rule for work zones. It is highly likely to be the rule and the condition for driving period. Just something to keep in mind. And the last one I'm going to cover is the telephone privacy law. So we've had for a while a telephone privacy law. It is in addition to the federal do not call list. It's Virginia's version of enforceability, and they've added a few things. So what they've added in this, and I'm going to talk about what they added, and then we'll talk about what is already standard you may not have known, is they've now made it a class 3 felony to misrepresent yourself, your phone number, or your company when you're calling. So if you were to call and say, hey, I am John Smith and I am with some other real estate company, and you use a fake phone number as a caller ID, and we all get those on our phones, it will be a violation. Matter of fact, it's going to be a class 3 felony, class 2 felony if it's a repeated occurrence. Now, generally that's not a problem for you and I. Generally, we're not going to lie about what company or name, and we're not going to use some type of fake phone ID number. But now you should know that that's a thing. What does more apply to us, and these are existing rules, and as a reminder that the telephone privacy law says you have to abide by the do not call list first. You also, in addition to that do not call list, you may not, as a seller, and that's us, we're selling a service. In this case, it's real estate services. So think about calling a for sale by owner, or think about calling a expired listing, or just cold calling a seller for whatever reason. You can only call after 8 a.m. and prior to 9 p.m. So 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. You must identify yourself and your name initially. So when they pick up the phone, you have to say, hey, this is Matthew Rathbun, Coldwell Banker Elite, and here's why I'm calling. There's have to be the initial part of the conversation is who you are and who you work for. Next, you cannot fake your caller ID. Now, you can block your caller ID. That's okay. Because when it comes up on your phone, it says blocked ID, and most of us won't pick up a blocked call anyways. But you're not allowed to fake it or spoof that phone number to some other phone number. And then lastly, again, you have to follow all the do not call regulations. So this is pretty easy for us. Most of us are not doing cold calls, but you have to remember that these all apply to expired listings and FSBOs as well. And for those who are still having this problem like me, my phone is almost useless now, honestly. Unless you're in my contacts, I don't even answer it because it's almost always going to be a crap caller. Those poor telemarketers who can't get real jobs, whatever. If you get those calls and you're getting them in excess, like most of us are, do not call doesn't apply to you and I because we put out our cell phone numbers as business numbers. I still go and put my cell phone number on the do not call list, but the enforceability is slim to none because we're commercial users. We're selling services. We're using it for business. We put it on all of our marketing, most of us. And so we really don't benefit from it technically. That said, I do love the app RoboKiller. RoboKiller, there is a subscription fee to get the full benefit. It is significantly cut down on a bunch of the junk calls I get, and let me manage them. And there's a few other tricks, like you can create, stupid voicemail messages for known to be call solicitors or whomever. So I do understand that I'm not getting paid money to recommend RoboKiller. I happen to use it and like it very much. I've used lots of them. It doesn't kill everything. I still get tons of calls to get through there because the people making these junk calls are frankly more clever and more industrious than any blocking service. None of them are perfect, but that's the one I like the best. So that's just a quick rundown of things I think that affect us on a day-to-day basis. Yes, there are other things that have been changed about just fine-tuning and fixing things, most of which I think most of us already thought were the rule or should be a rule. So these are the ones that I think impact us on a day-to-day. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. I'll be happy to do what I can to answer those calls. And as always, don't ignore your emails and your podcasts from Virginia Realtors or your local association. They're there to help you and give you an update of this stuff. And keep your eye out for that distracted caller regulation. Again, the soonest it'll be put in place is January of 2020, but I think it's an important thing to keep an eye on, as this does affect almost all of us as we're driving our cars. And I think almost all of us have at some point picked up that phone, even at a stoplight, to look at text messages or put up the phone to our ear to take a phone call. All that would be unlawful as of January. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks so much. Bye.